Oh, hey David. Pacman and I were just getting some light reading in while we waited for this video to render. Should be finished any moment now. David, you inspired me to get a whole bunch of coloured pens. They're not fountain pens, because I don't think I'm skilled enough to use a fountain pen. But they're pretty cool. I got black, orange, blue, green. Actually got some more colours. I got red, blue, purple. It's kind of like a pinky colour. So I'm excited to use these today. So there's lots of things to cover. We've had some pretty good feedback from the community with suggestions and ideas. I think what I want to first do is just address the 13 segments and why we're doing 13 and not doing 14 or 16 or something else. Let's start off with green. So a few people have commented that normally with an alphanumeric display, you'd do something like this. You'd have like that, you'd have like that, then you'd separate these two middle ones, right? So that way you could do, for instance, a G, like that. But we don't have the ability to do that because we can't cut a filament in half, an LED filament in half. And the only way we could split the center would be to actually make the digit twice as big. So we'd have to do something like, which would allow us to do, potentially to do it. I don't know how we'd fit it all in. That would give us the ability to split things, but obviously it's going to make the digit 4 times bigger. It's going to use twice as many LEDs, twice as much power. It's going to give us joins through the middle, which is going to make it even harder to add circuitry on there. So personally, I don't want to go down that road. I'd rather do, it's going to go blue, I'd rather do the smaller segments and just stick to the individual LEDs per segment. And we can still do extra characters, like we can still do a G. It's just that our G will be slightly different. It'll be, we could do something like this for a G, which I think in the context of a word is still going to look okay. The same with the K. We could do, and sure, we don't have this little bit in the middle here, but I think still people are going to instantly recognize that as a K. If we did something like, I mean, B's are an obvious problem as well, right? But this is how you generally do a B. Now it looks like an 8, but in the context of a word, if we were to do this, everyone's going to understand that that's the word black. So I get that, you know, some people are saying to us we need to put more segments in, we need to be able to represent a G or a K or a B, but I don't think we do. I think we can definitely get away with using just the 13 segments, and it's going to make our life much easier. And we can play around with different character designs. Like we can even, you know, look at doing a B like this. Maybe that'll work better than using the 8 symbol. So I just want to get that out the way. I'm all for sticking with the 13 segments. I think that's going to be challenging enough. This doesn't have to be the last board we make. It's just going to be the first board we make. So I think that there's plenty of opportunity for us to play with what the design's going to be and expand and grow. Yeah, so now we've got that out the way, let's grab a new piece of paper. Just something else I quickly want to bring up before I move on. I was having to think about what you were talking about on your video about using your chips, using my chips, and you kept mentioning the 74LS16. So the actual part number, just to let you know, it was 74LS670. But I agree with you that 74LS16 is a much better part number for it. So I contacted TI and I put a request in to have the product code changed. And they've agreed, and they're going to recall all of the chips that have got the 670 part number on them, and they're going to reissue them with the LS16. So that's well done, Dave. So I was rummaging through all of my component shelves, just doing a bit of a cleanup, and I found this. It's a 595. It must have come in a kit, I don't know, one of the Arduino kits or something I bought last year, and it's just been sitting in a drawer by itself. The reason I'm glad I've got this is because Greg Davil, who is someone I follow on Twitter and he follows me, he's also in Australia, in Adelaide. He's an amazing hardware guy. He pointed me to one of Mike's Electric Stuff's blog posts where he built a filament LED clock. Now, it's a very different project than what we're looking at working on, but he did something quite interesting. So he didn't attach his filaments directly to the board. What he did on his board, let me just, I'll draw a bit of a rectangle to represent a PCB. And I'll just change colour, just make it nice and clear. He put pins in, like little header pins, and that's what he joined the filaments to. So let's say he put a pin here, and he put a pin here, put one here, and put one there. And here actually, let me change colour again. He actually put a filament there and soldered onto the pin. Oops, did a little bit long, which kept the filaments off the PCB. So I was thinking, just as an idea, we don't have to do this because I still like the cutout idea. And of course, as you mentioned, you can pursue one design with the board and I can pursue another one using different components. If we raise them off the board like this, not only will we get some beautiful light spill across the PCB, but if we raise them just enough for the ICs to be able to sit on the board and, you know, have them sit underneath the filament, because don't forget we're going to have some angled filaments. So we're going to have a filament there, a filament here, and a filament here. It's going to be super tight. If I put long pins in just to represent those, and we had one here. The colours are kind of running into each other. Anyway, you know what I mean. We would potentially have room, let's go with green, have room to put the ICs underneath. I'm not saying we put them particularly here, but you know, we would have the room to have an IC under here, potentially onto the board, and we could have room for resistors underneath them and all sorts of other stuff. That might be kind of cool, because that would lift everything off and it would give us some gorgeous light spill all over all of the components and make it look very retro. So I'm thinking that I might pursue this idea because it solves the problem of how we're going to route around all the different components, how we're going to route between the cutouts and how close all these filaments are going to be. Oh, I didn't even put the one on top. See, like, it's getting really busy, isn't it? With all these filaments everywhere. Anyway, I'm kind of liking this idea, so I think I might pursue this. Not that I want to plagiarise Mike's idea, but I think this could be kind of cool. So, what do you think, Dave? Do you like that? I mean, not that it matters. I'm going to do it. You can do it your way. You can do it with a cutout. I think I'm going to go this way. I'm not sure yet. I'm going to have a think about it. But it means that we don't have to have all the components down the bottom, like we've been talking about. It means I can still keep the boards quite condensed. Don't have to have extra padding around the outsides to make sure that we can fit the components in. Yeah, I'm really liking this, I think. I think it's great. Actually, you know what we should do? We should probably measure how big this chip is just to get a good idea of how high we need to put it. Now, I'm assuming we're not putting these inside sockets. If we put them in sockets, that's going to cause a bit of a problem because that's going to give us quite a lot of height. I believe with a socket, you know, we're looking at about a good 8mm in height. And we can definitely do that with headers. It just means that the filament's going to be quite far off the board. It's going to make the actual components from the side view, it's going to make them quite high if we're going to have an 8mm gap. Let's do lots of squiggles for millimetre. I think that potentially could be too much. But if it's going to sit directly on the board, we're going to solder them directly onto the board, then we really only need, how much do we need? Assuming we get them really close to the board, maybe 5mm. And I think 5mm is quite reasonable. Yeah, I'm quite excited by this. The chips aren't that big. You know, compared to a Neo 7 segment, we could definitely fit 2 of these on. Anyway, that's it for me. I don't have a lot more to talk about until I get my components and I can start working. But I did want to reply to you. I didn't want to come across looking tardy. So let's keep this flow of communication working, and I look forward to your response and to what the community think about the idea of lifting them off the board this way. Yeah, I like that idea. Speak to you soon.